can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Yeah, no sound. Hi, everyone. I'm Tammy. Oh, techno.
All right. Test. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes that you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Tammy, could you give me a quick mic check? Because now I cannot hear you for some reason. That's wonderful.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Okay. Sorry about this, folks. Everything was working just hunky-dory for
Can everyone else?
We were setting up, and now it's giving us a little bit of a loop. Oh. 1 second.
Everyone can hear me but you. You can't hear me say that.
Okay, third time is a charm.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it wasn't anything on your end. For some reason, when you go live, our platform decided to change some settings, and that's not anything you guys need to know. But thank you for bearing with us through that little technical hiccup. We'll go ahead and get started now that we've done a sound check. Folks are checking in from wherever you are. Appreciate the response in the chat. So hello and welcome to the Social Media Happy Hour, formerly known as the Agency Mastery Series. I'm Chris with the Cloud Campaign team, and returning to the show is one of my favorite guests and customers, Tami from Brand Yourself Consulting. Tami, welcome back.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, today we're going to be talking about authenticity, which is also one of my favorite subjects. Specifically, we're going to be diving into an actionable framework to reliably create authentic content across multiple clients, brands you manage, and channels. So before we get into this really meaty subject, Tami, can you give us just a quick introduction for folks who don't know you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Yeah. My name is Tami Enfield. I own a digital marketing agency. We specialize in social media content strategy. So I like to tell people I'm a dinosaur in this space, but what that really means is that I started my agency right before the birth of Instagram. So I've been around for a really long time. We know a thing or two about what works in terms of like content on social media to drive engagement and grow brands. So over the last 12 years, I've been working on a way to teach my clients how to be more authentic online. And therefore, we've created the Candid Content Framework, which we'll show you guys today.
Yeah, and just also full disclosure, Tami is a customer of Cloud Campaign. She also has participated in our customer advisory board, but she just has an incredible brand, incredible agency, and knowledge and expertise. And we found just great value in collaborating with each other. But also just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that Tami also does use Cloud Campaign in her marketing stack.
We do. We love it.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So let's do some housekeeping real quick before we dive in. If you folks listening at home, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. If we'll get to them when we can. If we do not get to them right away, just know that we see them. We'll save them for also a Q&A session at the end. We will be sending a recorded version of this webinar once we're done in an email, along with the relevant links that we've mentioned, any resources or things that we've talked about in this chat. So with that out of the way, let's get candid. Tami, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So I think first within the scope of this conversation, I think it's important to just establish what is authenticity. So can you kind of like set the stage for what we'll be talking about as it relates to social media and content?
Yeah. So authenticity wins every time in terms of social media content, especially for marketers and content creators. Getting the more authentic we can online, the better. Getting our clients to get authentic online is another story. Usually people are scared with that term. So we've come up with Candid, but authenticity in terms of stats and statistics, there's one stat that says 87% of brands really think that they're promoting or pushing out authentic content, but only 37% of their followers agree. So there's a huge disconnect in what brands are writing and posting and what consumers are picking up. There's many different reasons for that, which we'll get into, as well as like performative vulnerability and everything. But there's a huge missing piece to the authentic conversation on social, and it is the creator's values or the brand's values that need to get more entered into like the content and the storytelling aspect of everything. So I really want to teach today the power of making sure that you're keeping your customers in mind and you, or if you're writing for a client, it would be the client's customers and your client in mind when putting together content, so that that disconnect that happens decreases. And, you know, authentic brands, I think it's like 87% of consumers say that authenticity matters when purchasing products or following people.
Okay.
There's a few other statistics that I could roll off, but.
Well, I think it's pretty clear. There's a pretty clear gap of like what, you know, us as content creators, like, this is great, this is authentic, and what the audience is receiving.
Mm-hmm.
So what, like, why focus on this? Like, what are the actual benefits of like creating genuinely more authentic content?
Well, the reason I dove into it, honestly, was because I wanted to improve the culture of social media, being on it every day and working on it every day. And then seeing my clients and hearing people like, oh, if I could get off social media, I would. I hate social media. And then, you know, parents that I know being scared to let their kids on it. I really wanted to figure out how to make it a better place and how to make it a more connecting place. And all the research shows the more authentic and vulnerable we can be, the better connections and relationships we can build, both for ourselves and our brands. So how to promote vulnerability and authenticity, I think, is what drove me to really dive into the content and try to teach people what that meant, just so that we can make social media a better place to hang out, more authentic corners of the internet.
That resonates with me, because that's one of the reasons why I, you know, kind of started shying away from social media, was the sheer amount of volume it seemed like it required to even get noticed. And then also just, you know, the general atmosphere that can, you know, pop up in some spaces.
Yeah.
So that being able to kind of create a framework to like, hey, this is a way to create a better space, I think is a very ambitious and wonderful goal.
Yeah, I'm changing the culture of social media one post at a time.
I like that. Well, and as a copywriter, part of my job is to understand a brand and then write in that brand's voice. And that's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
It's not, especially not easy if you're doing it over multiple brands and clients, you know, and then across channels that are maybe even more tailored to messages. So like, I want to kind of emphasize that as a point, like that's a big pain point for me. So I'm curious to hear more about how this can help make that more actionable, like how to streamline that process in a sense.
Right. So with, the candid principles, we can create questions from it, and how we do it at our agency is we interview our clients and ask them, you know, really specific questions related to their content pillars, so that they don't feel like it's a waste of time. It's not, I often tell my clients that it's not, you don't need to post pictures of yourself crying underneath your desk to be vulnerable or authentic or candid, if you will. Like, a lot of people think that that's what that, when we say authentic content means, it's showing up on camera without makeup on and talking, you know, about a problem you're having, which it doesn't need to be. If it's tied to your pillars and what you want to do and the value you bring as a brand, I think we can concentrate more on values instead of the algorithm, and just bring more authenticity to brands.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the like, if you're speaking of how do I show that I'm vulnerable, I feel like there's those superficial gestures. How do we kind of, as content creators, avoid falling into that trap? I think the term that you've used before is like performative vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I really like that as a concept. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit and just kind of tell us?
Yeah, there's been some articles out, and I can share it with the follow-up. There was an article written for LinkedIn, and it was what's happening to LinkedIn. And it the story it told was a gentleman who posted like, I got divorced today on LinkedIn. And it's okay, I'm sorry that you got divorced, but the report was sharing that they were doing it for clicks and for likes. And it wasn't necessarily serving any value to any of their followers. So it's this, I'm trying to cheat the algorithm by posting something that I know is either trendy or going to get some engagement. And then I'm going to share something really boring later. And more people will see it because I had this one piece of vulnerable content out there. So I think the performative vulnerability is also brands who, an example I give a lot is maybe posting the Pride flag in June because it's Pride Month, but never sharing anything about Pride throughout the year. So it's like that performative vulnerability, like you're doing it for the trend or you're doing it to increase engagement. So it is all self-serving. If you're doing it for the value of your clients or your followers and trying to add value, that type of vulnerability is what people can feel and see and react to. And that's the formula that I have, is that candid approach. It's not chasing trends or posting things just to get likes or engagement or comments. People will do it with their breakups. People do, it's all ego driven when it's performative vulnerability. And I do think that content creators fall into performative vulnerability with not necessarily knowing that they're doing it or meaning to do it. Because when you're trying to write vulnerable content for a brand that you aren't in with we all have different engagements with our clients. And if you're really trying to write vulnerable content, your values that you're writing about might not necessarily match the brand's values. So then it becomes a little performative on their end, if that makes sense. So their brand followers are like, oh, it doesn't really make much sense. Must be the, content writer. So it's kind of falling into that trap without necessarily meaning to too.
Yeah, and that creates a disjointed experience too. If it's like, oh, it's pretty obvious this was a agency that came in or somebody else writing for the brand.
The newest intern. Running social.
Yeah. And no slight to our wonderful interns out there who are cutting their teeth on social media, but it's also, I think in this, especially if you're managing a lot of brands, it can be tough to really go deep enough to figure out what, observations or holidays or other, things that you can share that are really actually meaningful to the brand and also beneficial to the audience that they're serving.
Yeah. So like National Donut Day makes sense for Dunkin' Donuts, coffee shops. National Donut Day doesn't necessarily make sense for me as a marketing agency unless we had a client that made donuts, right? But making sure that those hashtag holidays actually fit in with the content and make sense, and you can tell a story around it. I think that's the other thing. Once people learn about those candid content, or not candid, sorry, the hashtag holidays, they kind of go crazy for a little bit. I don't know, because there's a holiday for every day.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
It really is.
I should have checked.
We're putting together our social media calendar for next year, and it's I
reference all the time. There's a lot. Yeah, we reference your guys' calendar all the time.
I didn't know this was the day, but it certainly is. And Deborah in the chat also mentioned, no longer doing social for a client because the college-bound son is taking it over. No more of that. Absolutely. Well, so let's talk about some of the benefits, the business benefits of being authentic. Can you dive into that? Like, it takes maybe a different approach, but what are some of the incentives here?
Yeah, well, I mean, from an agency standpoint, I know turnover is really a big thing right now for content writers. And I think everybody's just getting burned out writing boring content. So it has been shown that authenticity, just even within your agency's culture and within like your business, converting that to content and then having everybody hop on for behind a meaningful conversation is what actually holds people together. So less turnover for an agency is probably one of the better benefits. Agencies, content writers won't get as bored because they're writing meaningful content and adding value every day. So that's a huge thing. Authenticity obviously grows community. and it's the quickest way to create a relationship. And what's social media better, best known for is creating those relationships and creating communities. So using authentic posts within your social media strategy is going to build your online community a lot faster and grow your brand and increase conversions. We've seen, just in our own research, we've seen a ton of, growth over engagement and clicks.
Yeah, and it makes sense if you're creating a community or a conversation and dialogue around this. That leads to better or more views, more engagement, more shares, and then you're nurturing and higher conversion, whatever is relevant for your agency.
Yeah. So. I read I'm full of the marketing math today, but a statistic on LinkedIn, if a post is shared from a brand versus a personal profile, so if like brand yourself as an agency page wrote something, and then if Tami Enfield wrote something, my page would have a 561% larger engagement on LinkedIn if it comes from a person versus a brand. So people are really, really searching for that connection and that community. And there's a huge opportunity to find it on social. We have to be very mindful about it as creators, and people have to be looking in the right place. But
yeah. Well, I guess let's start diving into what the Candid framework is and figure out like how can we start making content more actionably authentic.
Oh, so excited.
The fun stuff. It begins.
Yeah. Okay, this worked before. Hopefully we don't break the internet.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Can you see it? Can you see me sticking up my nose?
Here we go. Woo, I see it. Let us know if you can see the all right, we got a confirmation in the chat.
Okay. All right. So I prepared a little bit of a slide about me, some authenticity facts that I kind of mentioned some of them, but 88% of consumers say that authenticity is a key factor when deciding what brands to like and support. 76% of consumers purchase from brands that share the same values as they do. Like I said, that's that huge disconnect in terms of when brands are thinking they're posting vulnerable or authentic content and consumers aren't seeing it. It's because there's a value gap that the brands aren't sharing. Trust is built. 81% of consumers say that they have to trust a brand in order to purchase from them. So authentic content and candid content solves for this gap. How we look at social strategy, content pillars, narrative lenses, like how you tell your story, our candid formula, and then engaging content. I won't go into the narrative lenses, but I do have some resources for you guys for later. It's just like different ways to tell a story for narrative marketing. But this is the candid framework. So there's two pieces to it. There's the customer focused principles and the creator focused principles. The customer, and it's, it lays out into acronym here, but CAN, the customer focused principles. The first one is connection. Second is aligned, and is it narrative? So asking yourself through your customer's perspective, does this connect to them? Is this aligned with what they need solved and what you offer? And are you telling a story? Because story is the quickest way for any sort of marketing content. The creator focused principles, this is what I think gets dropped in terms of when marketing agencies are planning content, the creator focused themes. And this is where that disconnect happens. If it's not a value of mine, but I'm trying to write about it, it's going to fall short. So the creator focus, do I feel like I'm being a bit daring? That's my way of saying vulnerable. People don't like the word vulnerable. Trying to stay away from the term authentic because we've used it a lot already. But do I feel a bit daring when I post it? Do I feel like I'm being inspirational? So am I inspiring my followers? And does it make me happy? Will it make my followers happy? So making sure that you keep these principles in mind. In order to make it a candid post, you only need one from each. You need one customer-focused principle and one creator-focused principle. So I go into it and I shared a bit more about what they are. So connection, this is where empathy comes in. Are you connecting with your client's problems, what they need solved from an empathetic level? I know what you're going through. I understand. That's a way to build connection. Is this aligned? Like I mentioned, is this a mission? You have a mission that your business is solving for a problem and you're helping your clients feel something. Does this piece of content help them feel that? And is it storytelling? Like I said, daring, inspiring, and delightful. Those are the creator focus themes. So again, one from each makes it a candid post. So, and then, like I said, I can't drill this in enough. The most important piece of the candid framework is the creator. So making sure that it hits one of these buckets is what's going to make the post either succeed or fall flat. Everyone's really good at the customer focus themes. We can connect all day long. We can align it with our content pillars. We can tell stories. But not many of us, especially when we're writing for other people, keep our clients in mind when writing this. When you're writing for clients, it's a little bit harder to do unless you really know them or you have a lot of ways to access information from them. We do interviews via Zoom, so we can record it and transcribe it and whatever. But if anybody needs ideas on how to get this type of content out of your clients, I've got tons. A case study for this, I don't know how many people know Jenna Kutcher, but Jenna Kutcher came on the map because of one social media post. She posted this way back in 2018. It was a picture that she had posted of her and her husband on the beach, and she got body shamed. She got slammed online. And this is her response to getting slammed. And it was very authentic. It was very heartfelt. It was super daring and bold. Like, it almost checks every box of the candid content framework, which is fairly abnormal. But this post, when we researched the engagement metrics, again, marketing math, 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, there was a 206% increase in engagement. And that continued. Like, her whole career took off from this one point. Obviously, I don't want to discount the fact that she's a great content creator and runs a phenomenal business, but this post really put her on the map. Just a few within mine. When I have been posting, I've been trying this out for a while. When I post something fairly vulnerable that follows the candid framework, over time, we saw a 211% increase in mine. For clients, we've been seeing just on LinkedIn, some of our clients have received over a 26% increase over 1 month in impressions. So people are craving this. That's what this tells. Like, the marketing math tells me people are craving this type of content. They want to connect with people. They want to see the human side of brands. And
even anecdotally, just seeing you on LinkedIn, I've noticed just a strong uptick in like general engagement around your content as you've shifted and implemented this framework for your own material.
Yeah, it's really fun to create. I'll admit that the daring piece, like when you're going to really share, like this post was about shifting my business because I had, whatever, you guys can go read it. But made me want to throw up a little bit in my mouth before I hit post. Not saying everybody needs to feel
That's the litmus test.
Yep, there it is. That's the litmus test. But no, we've seen a really great increase in just overall engagement. And then, once your engagement's up and you've created that community, that's when sales or conversions can really start to happen from social. And we've taken this type of content and implemented it to emails, blogs, videos, and everything else. So it doesn't have to just be the short form content. It can be longer content too. And I do want to highlight the fact that you only need one from each to make it candid. So don't overthink it. And not every post has to be candid. There are going to be posts that are just like, here's my sale today, right? Like, not every post can be candid, but if you can have an 80-20 approach to it, you'll see a huge difference right away.
Question for you, Tami. As you're sort of breaking this down and picking, maybe a C and an I, do you have a strategy or like a recommendation to kind of mix it up? Like, is it okay if I just like to do C and I, and that's just my bread and butter? Or do you have like a recommendation?
So how we do it here, I have a workbook that I'll show you guys. I have it available. We really plan it out through that. And we take an approach of like mixing it up as much as you can at first. And then with Cloud Campaign, what we do is we have category. Cloud Campaign has where you can categorize your posts. We've done it with pillars for a long time. Now we've shifted and we've taken the candid concepts or principles, and we'll say this post is, has connection and delightful, and we'll do that. And then at the end of the month, you can see what your clients or what your followers are resonating with the most, so that, if my followers really love these connection posts that are a bit daring, I'll tell you that's what they'll 8 times out of 10, they're going to love the connection and daring. But you can kind of see engage based on that. It's a really great way for us to monitor which of our clients, what type of content we need to double down on.
Okay. So it sounds like maybe mix it up, cast a broad net to get some data, figure out what's resonating. And then based on that, if the C and Ds are working the best, maybe that's something you focus on. But also, like, based on that, you can also roll in those other ones that are still resonating, but just not as much.
Yep. Just having a good mix.
Prioritize.
But doubling down on the ones that really work.
Yeah.
The other way we use it is that candid posts are usually evergreen. Meaning, if you're really using this framework, it will always have connection. It will always be daring. So what we do is within Cloud Campaign, we ask the AI to rewrite the post for us, and then we schedule a drip. So with one post, you could create 10 different prompts, put in 10 different assets, and have a post a month for 10 months that is going to work and be successful. That's
very cool. And for folks who aren't using the platform, Tammy's referring to the caption writer.
I'll send my affiliate link.
Yeah, please do. Share it in the chat. No, but so there is a built-in caption writer that can like rewrite that content for you, and kind of, how have you been using that for your workflow? Can you comment on that real quick?
Well, so that's the danger, is that now with all this AI, expertise is going to be less and less impactful, right? Because we all can have access to it with AI everywhere. So how we've used it is we write the post from ourselves first, and then we throw it in and have it rewrite it. We do that with a lot of different types of content.
Yeah. Could you give an example of like, what are you rewriting? Like what prompt are you giving to kind of change it?
Oh, we just say, write this another way using.
Oh, okay. Just like different language. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it'll take
multiple posts.
Rewrite it. Yeah. It'll give you multiple options on how to say the same thing.
And then you use that to recycle that piece of content multiple times, but keeping it fresh. Nice. Very cool. I'm going to pop into the comments real quick, because there's some that are coming in. Laura just mentioned, going back to our intern thing, I thought this was a nice comment. Maybe not being so annoyed at folks passing off social to their kiddos or college grads, because that person might not be your ideal client. Thank 100%. You for sharing that.
I agree with that. Thanks, Laura.
Or they realize it's not going to work out, and then they come crawling back. We're sorry. Help us. What else do we got? Marie made a comment too. So using AI, just being able to connect with brands without penalty to the page, but that she brings up a very good point about being less authentic with some of that content. So I think this is a nice way to bridge that, of create the authentic piece from the heart, from the human, and then use AI to change it and present it differently.
Yeah. We've had a lot of good luck with using it that way. I think if you just ask it to write posts, that's the content that's creating a lot of noise, is just the AI generated content that people are using.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And Elise also chimes into that they don't like AI. And I honestly think AI is just one of those things we're going to have to learn to live with.
Figure out how to work for us.
Yeah. And I don't like certain applications of AI. I don't like the abuse of AI. But I'm in the sense of like, any tool can be very useful and effective if used appropriately.
Right.
And I think, we're all figuring out.
Time. I mean, for me to write 10 posts from a prompt. So I have a list of like 300 different prompts through the storytelling lenses. that fit this candid framework in the workbook that I have. So I'll pick a prompt, answer the question, and that, because I think there was, sorry, I'm jumping ahead to,
That's okay.
How do I avoid posting repetitive content for my clients, or which post do I pick?
Oh yeah, Sarah's and Katie's question.
Yeah, that's how we do it. We pick one that we know will work, and then we have it redone. Or we take a look at the analytics, which Cloud Campaign offers, and says this is your best post, and then we say, okay, AI, rewrite this post, because it works before. Just saying it differently and reposting it isn't gonna hurt anything. It'll create the results again. So usually it does shorten the amount of time spent really crafting content for clients when you have a limited amount of time to get knowledge extracted from them. Right? So have them answer a few questions and then rewrite those answers, and then have that content drip.
Yeah. And I think, Laura also brings up a great point. AI is just code. You still have to, there's still, and we have emphasized this on any time we've, talked about AI on the show, there needs to be the human element. There needs to be the intervention and oversight and ops and editing and just fact checking. I think it is an abuse of AI to just like, oh, click that. That's my copy. Send it out into the world.
Yeah, I think I saw a post that was like, hey, thought leaders, create your, quarter's worth of content in 1.5 hours. I was like, oh no, like it's not gonna work.
Yeah, and that's why I like this framework, because we're getting back to more like quality, but also kind of blending a little bit of quantity with that.
Yeah, I think you said the other day that was like, I wrote it down. It was less about the algorithm, more about the values, or less about I lost where he wrote it. Don't be enticed by trends, follow the value. It's a quote directly from you yesterday.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, quotable.
I'm usually the one looking out for sound bites. All right. Well, so let's get back on track. We've got a few questions that I wanna jump on. Let me just take these from Sydney. Does authentic have to mean unedited?
Ooh.
A lot of our clients tend to have this view. Interesting.
Yes, that's a great question. No, I think authenticity can be edited. I do think so a lot of the research that I've read has shared that when I say I'm being authentic, only 55% of the people I say that to are going to believe me, because authenticity is so subjective, right? So I know I can know I'm being authentic because authenticity is really matched with like your values as a human, right? So, and that's where this huge disconnect is coming from, in terms of like 87% of brands think they're being authentic and only 37% of consumers agree. The values that I hold as a content creator have to start coming into has to be involved in the content in order for that disconnect to be made shorter. I think editing for grammar and editing for whatever you want to edit for, if it's
or maybe unedited. Do you Sydney, please feel free to clarify, but maybe like unfiltered, like more raw in a sense. Like I'm wondering if maybe they mean.
And that's, I do think that there's a lot of people that think they have to be like crying on Instagram stories, and that like that's a form of authenticity, but you don't have to do that at all. Like I don't cry as much. No, I don't think, Sydney, I think you can absolutely edit and curate authentic content. It just, as long as you understand that who you're creating it for, whether it's yourself or for a client, your values show up everywhere.
Yeah.
In that content.
And then Sydney's second part of the question was, how often do daring posts generate negative feedback? Especially as we kind of circle back, like internet's not the safest or most inclusive space necessarily. So how does that fit in?
Great question. Most of the daring content might be polarizing, or not most. Some of our daring content can be polarizing, and you might, hit a chord with someone that you're not. My answer to that would be that they're probably not your avatar. If you've reached them and they come back at it negatively, I think that they just probably aren't an avatar, part of your community. The people that are going to be part of your community and brand ambassadors for you are going to love whatever comes out of your mouth.
And probably stick up for you or for the brands that you're representing if there is that like, I'm sure within Jenna Kutcher's post, there were more people supporting her than trying to tear her down. So I think
we don't know, because all the tearing down happens in DMs. A lot of the tearing down happens in DMs. So, you know, especially on a post like that, I think people, you know, people can just be, I don't know if I can swear on this, can be bad people.
Yeah.
Regardless. It's definitely the daring posts, the ones that feel very vulnerable, or ones like the hills you'll die on, and you want to talk about whatever it is or whatever problem that you're so mad people have to deal with that you have a simple solution to. I think like those will be heard, and it'll be, that energy will be felt. I haven't had, granted, I'm not an influencer yet. Maybe next year at this time we'll be having a different conversation. But I haven't had any loss in followers. If anything, like I said, it's been increases. I've not seen decreases with daring content.
Yeah.
Yet.
I guess I may have like two thoughts there. One is, one trap I could see someone falling into with daring content is just the emotional piece clouding everything else. Like I feel really passionate about this, me personally, and I can't remove my own personal bias from like the brand's mission and value and audience. So just like tempering impulse and emotion when you're creating daring content. And then if there's, go ahead, Tami.
Well, I was going to say there is that. There's been a lot of, I follow a lot of like mental health advocacy accounts and stuff, and like following or posting your trauma as you're going through it, or posting something that you're feeling that you haven't completely resolved, like that's like I'm going through a breakup or I'm getting a divorce type of content, isn't going to necessarily produce the results you need specifically for a brand. It might give you the connection you need on a personal page, people, you know, wanting to help out and whatever, but from a brand perspective, that might not be the best place to do it. The only time I could see a post about like, hey, I got a divorce today, would be like a mediator or a divorce attorney and saying how they navigated their own divorce. How it works, right? Like that would be actually really interesting. That would be a really great post for an attorney or a mediator to make. But
yeah, Laura mentioned a comment that I really like: share the scar, not the wound.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of like,
you're my people.
There.
Yeah, I'm my people.
And the other thing too is just if daring content really backfires and you're just hemorrhaging followers, there's a few things that's going on. One, it's the wrong message and you need to course correct, or it's the wrong audience. Like there's a clear mismatch between, you know, what you value or the creator values and what the audience values. Tami, feel free to jump in if you have any other insights there of like what you might do if it's like, oh, this was too daring.
Yeah, like it could be a disconnect if you're creating for a different brand. That's where we would see it happen, I think, the most. If it's a personal brand, like you want the people that agree with you to be following you and advocating for you. So to what you said about maybe it not being the right audience or the right, you know, value to be talking about, I think it happens more when we're writing for brands that maybe like the writer, the intern, the agency, content creator is writing something for someone else that may not feel right for them.
Sarah House has a really neat question. Do you have any examples of authentic content you could create from scratch if the client doesn't have any like visual assets? How do you fill in the gaps for some of that media?
Oh, if they don't, yeah, we use a lot of text quotes. We'll pull out or get some headshots or pictures of the people behind the brands doing something and then do a text overlay. We do that a lot. Infographics. It depends on what you're saying. Like happy to hop on a call, talk about visual assets. That can be tricky when you don't have a lot of behind the scenes brand photos, but it's doable.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's the other piece too, is like once you kind of figure out which customer facing and your customer facing and so how did you segment the second part?
The creator focus?
Creator focus.
Yeah.
Then turning that into the actual content. I think like text and visual representations of that can be a little trickier.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
often, you know what I've seen people do too is like they post a picture of their tweet. You guys, I mean, that's all over the place, right? Like,
oh yeah, yeah, like a visual representation of it.
Visual representation of like what they would say. I think is like Adam Grant's really good at that. He does that all the time.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen his. So I'm curious, after like applying this framework, like what kind of what should people be looking out for in terms of their analytics? Like how, like kind of like before and after, kind of taking a snapshot.
Yeah.
Comments on that?
Sure, for sure. I think, like I said, this is where we've gotten a lot of, and this is how we can also talk our clients into doing more of it.
Yeah, that's what I want to lead to. How do you kind of get your clients to be daring?
Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not being vulnerable, not doing it. And then like we'll post one thing and then it gets bigger engagement and a little bit more. That's one way. If you can track like, oh my gosh, look at this type of content, this is your best, long text with a still photo image. I think Cloud Campaigns gives us that information in terms of what type of content is getting the most engagement or hashtag. Yeah, just keeping track and making sure that what you're posting aligns with content pillars and values.
Yeah, so you could maybe create some like test sample posts to validate the idea and slide it in and then kind of use that as the foot in the door.
Trying to get somebody to just like convert over to like all authentic content is really difficult in my experience. Just shaking it into your current strategy and then slowly adding more is how I would recommend introducing it.
Yeah. And Zenob also had a good question about just like creating value through faceless video content. Using like the face card, you can draw in people, but of course people don't want their faces to be shown sometimes. Like they don't want their, that's fine. There's definitely some techniques.
Yeah, voiceovers. You can have just B-roll with a voiceover. A lot of times I see there's a lot of ways to get video without a human.
Yeah. And I think, especially with Canva, you can do really simple like text animations or like slideshow type stuff. That's just very, very clean and simple way to get messages across. I also like what Laura said about empowering your clients to do just their own photo shoots using their phone. That also kind of gives it that authentic or like unedited feel. So I think that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Tami, we're coming up on time, but I'm curious to know how folks at home can start getting started with Candid and bringing that into their workflows.
Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I do have some workbooks. So for agencies, I'm licensing the framework and licensing the workbook for content creators to use. Oh, I gotta share my screen again. What I like about it is that I've worked pretty hard on the workbook itself, but this is where my 300 and some prompts are. So stories to ask or questions to ask your clients or yourself, and then write those prompts, write those captions. They're automatically going to be candid because they're all pulled from the framework. And then the workbooks will actually allow you to like create the post, say what pillar it's in, what candid principles are there. I have 3 different versions of the workbook if you guys want it. One is a full content strategy. We use that workbook as a standalone product to sell to people who need content strategy or want to increase their engagement or want a better social strategy. This would be great for the people who do have the nieces and nephews or the interns working on their social content. Give them a plan, let them go, let them have at it. So the workbook it's full, from blog posts, podcasts, video planning, everything. And then there's 2 other workbooks for maybe people who don't want to use it for that extent. It's just the Candid workbooks, but you get all 3 if you want to license the workbooks. My website has a playbook on it. I can share the link to that too. It explains the content in a little bit more detail and gives ways on how to use it, like how to use memes how can you make a meme candid, right? Or how can you just make a pretty picture candid? And it kind of walks you through those examples. So that might answer some of the questions in the chat too, in terms of how to introduce some of this stuff. But the playbook is on my website for free. So you can license the workbooks here. If you do purchase by next week, I do have a product called the Candid Overhaul, which is it would be a standalone product you could turn around and resell. Overhaul someone else's content, give them an audit, say this is what's working, this is how you could be more authentic, and ship it back to them. So
it's like a thing that they can kind of resell into their own package as like a revenue generating product for their own.
And same with the workbook. Like I said, we've filled out the workbook and delivered it as a product.
Yeah, I think that's really cool and unique. And a lot of most of the things I see is just like, use this to help your business, but this is like use it to help your business and also resell it to help your business create new revenue streams.
Yeah. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use this one.
Yeah. And that's also just in spirit of what we do with Cloud Campaign and our affiliate program. Like we just really want people to spread the good word and try to make it very easy and lucrative for you to do that. So thank you for creating such an awesome, actionable framework for making things more authentic and for making the internet just a little bit better.
I'm trying.
On the space.
I'm trying. I really hope that people understand the impact that this type of content can make on their brands and on other people. Like helping other people feel seen, heard, and held online is one of my biggest goals. Yeah.
Tami, do you mind sharing that link in the chat? Also share it in the email follow-up that will be coming out afterwards. That will also include the links, the slides Tami shared, and some other materials. Also link back to the last chat that we had together, because I think that was a really good one as well. Katie asked, this is basically like, is this like a white label, like something they kind of like white label into their...
Yep, you guys, you can rebrand it. It's just there's a licensing agreement, meaning that you won't take credit for the creation of the Candid formula. But you can take the workbooks and use them as you need to.
I think that's fair. Wonderful. All right. Well, I think that's all we have today for this month's Social Media Happy Hour. Tami, thank you again so much for joining us and sharing the Candid framework. Just remind us one more time where folks can reach you for more information.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Tami Enfield, Tami Enfield. My website's brandyourselfconsulting.com. I have a personal brand that I'm trying to build out around Candid at TamiEnfield.com. So we'll share all of those. But reach out if you have questions. I'm happy. I love talking shop all day.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And we will catch you next month for a Social Media Happy Hour. Bye.